have to make you wait for one more second. I'm so sorry. But I'm taking this one in a second. Sorry. Okay, I'm coming back. And now I'm the one making an entrance.
Hello.
It should be you.
Hi, guys.
Hi, everyone. How are you doing? Thank you for being patient with me. I was missing one of my cards. Welcome to our artist talk with Lea Colombo and Sportmax. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Valerie Prekelt. I'm a journalist, a moderator, and for the next 45 minutes, I have the honor of interviewing the great Lea Colombo. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. I'm excited.
So we will speak about your visual language, and if anything comes to your mind that you want to ask Lea, please feel free, take a little note, because there will be time for a Q&A at the end. Lea, let me introduce you. You're a self-taught artist from Cape Town, South Africa. You are known for your bold use of color. You're a photographer, you're a director, you also make furniture. And I believe that as a fashion director, as a fashion photographer, you really are one of the most authentic voices in the industry. And we are so excited to see your pictures around here. Additionally, you also work in sculpture, functional design. You design tables and objects from raw stones like red jasper or rose quartz.
Yes.
I like how you nod.
Yeah.
If anything is incorrect, you're like, no. And now for autumn-winter 2025, Sportmax invited you to reinterpret the Iconic S. We're going to learn a lot about that today. And I think that as a brand, Sportmax has always really focused on experimentation, design, the search for talent through both its clothing and its collaborations. And in your campaign, you're both the subject and the author.
Yes.
And the S isn't just a reoccurring symbol, it becomes really a key visual element, almost like an extension of your own creative language. So today, I don't only want to speak with you about fashion and photography, we're also talking about what it means to really build a visual language, how you create with intuition, energy, emotion, and how that guides you to make a good image. Thank you so much, Lea, for being here.
Thank you.
So I want to start at the very beginning, because as I said, you are self-taught. When did you start photographing?
So I kind of started photographing a little bit in high school. I luckily had an interesting art teacher that opened up photography for me. So from there, I moved to Paris when I was like 18, 19, and just started hustling and like getting little side jobs and gigs and that. And then I saw an opportunity with Dazed and Confused with the magazine, and they were looking for a backstage photographer. So I kind of jumped on that and I said, listen, this is my portfolio, this is what I've done. And they went for it. And then from there, that became a beautiful journey of me like traveling all over Europe, obviously doing like, 10 to 11 shows a day, back to back. But it really was my way of like learning and seeing and studying and trial and error and just having fun. So that's kind of how I started evolving my, visual language and started playing and seeing what works and just having fun with it.
And was that also the time when you really considered yourself to be a photographer?
Yeah, I would say so, yeah. So I think that's been like the layer that I started in, and then to kind of, that then opened up so many other ways of seeing, of being, of doing. But still, photography is obviously always my way of exploring the world and connecting with everything that I do, because I'm still always thinking and seeing in images in a way as well, or how to document things.
So the fashion industry, but also creatives in general, it can be a really tough industry. Was it ever a problem that you were self-taught?
I mean, I think that's always a thing that with being self-taught, people either are able to connect with that or not, or but I guess that comes from maybe their own way of conditioning and seeing. But that was something for me that I knew that if I had to go sit in a school and just someone tell me what to do, that's not how I was going to learn and kind of flourish or have my own, also find my own voice. So that was something, that
Mhm.
made sense.
So when we look at your images, do you want them to tell a story, or is that narrative not so important?
I think that's less important for me. I think if anything, I would like it to evoke an emotion or a feeling or something. I mean, again, I think the beauty of that or creation in itself is that you're still able to have your own feelings or connections or whatever it might be that it evokes within you. So I think that's a nice way of not, I don't want to channel one thing and have you just see one way. I would like you to kind of tap into it and see what comes up for you, let's say, or how it kind of touches you. So no.
But but do you like to hear these stories? So if what do you want to know what people feel when
Yeah,
they see your pictures?
of course. I mean, it's always interesting. It's interesting because I have a very different connection to it. I'm, creating it in the moment, and I may be so also immersed in it. I'm in it. So it's interesting to see how other people view it or see it, or or also because then it's things that I haven't even seen.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Yeah.
then and then at some point you started creating objects.
Yeah.
Like run us a little through how did you evolve into like a multidisciplinary artist?
Yeah, so I mean, I think with myself, like I always knew that I had more layers to explore, more things I wanted to do. So when it got to a point, let's say in fashion, that I felt I had, reached a certain point or just wanted to kind of do more, I took time out commercially and then kind of was starting to go back to South Africa to explore the lay of the land there because we have such amazing landscapes and light, and then decided I would produce my first solo exhibition. And then from there, just, I had visions and dreams and stuff, and that kind of was very prominent of like wanting to create like a pendulum sculpture and then working in stone and just really let myself feel it and then started creating like that quite openly.
Run us a little through your stations. So we have Dazed, that is in London.
Mm-hmm.
And then from London, you moved straight back to Cape Town.
I know. So I moved to Paris when I was 18. So I lived here for 3.5 years, and then I moved to New York, and then I was in London for 5, and then now kind of we started going back to South Africa like 4 years ago, and then now I've been permanently 2 years in Cape Town.
So in the introduction, I already mentioned color, and really when I think of you, and I'm excited to hear later what you feel when you see Lea's work, but I always think of color. Also when it comes to you as a person and how you dress, and I think you've once described color as emotion, as energy, and I wondered if you can explain that a little bit to us.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, what I love, color is everything that we see, it's everything that we connect with, and that holds an energy. And I think, there's so much to explore there, and in a sense of also, obviously emotions, but healing. I find it also very healing and engaging, and so many different elements. And it's quite nice when people allow themselves to kind of connect with that and to really see that there's so much beyond there to explore, and also how much lightness and brightness it brings. Yeah.
Because color is also always connected to light, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you have any specific color that really attracts you, or that you find yourself working with over and over again?
I think magenta at the moment has been very prominent, or always kind of there. But then again, all of them in a sense. But blue was one that I kind of never really tapped into, and now I've slowly started using more, which I love. Yeah.
That's really interesting, because now I would love to know if there are bad colors for you, or some way you feel a different, because you just said blue wasn't one you worked with.
I normally don't work a lot in black and white in a way, but then again, I do. It depends. But then they always add a bit of a tint over it, so it's just it gives me something.
And for your Sportmax collaboration, we find a few of the
We
of the photos in black and white,
Yes.
right? So we really deep dive into the campaign later, but I always love to hear about like personal connections. So what attracted you to work with Sportmax as a brand?
I think the beauty of it was now also the freedom that I had in a sense of them allowing me to trust in my process and just really let me create in how I often like to tackle projects and like trusting in that process, which has been really amazing and really exciting.
Okay, so I always want to know how a picture comes together. I'm sorry if I'm being like picky here. So we have, what do we say? We have color, and then we have light.
Shape and form and all of these elements that kind of, I guess, combine something, or you see something, or you work with the shape and you just go with it. Yeah.
And then do you always have an image in mind already?
Never. No, no. I'll know what I do in the moment. And so I like to really tune into it in that moment, because I don't really like to put myself any preconceived ideas, because you never know. In the moment, anything can happen and it can change, and the outcome can be so different. So I think that's quite nice when you're just allow yourself to be present, and but obviously working with brands and things, there's always a lot of. It's not always as easy, but I will say
we'll deep dive into that later. And you photographed analog for quite a while, right?
I started in digital in the beginning, and then kind of tapped into analog a bit and did a lot of printing in the darkroom, and then now have kind of veered back to digital because it's just quicker, easier, and also I travel so much and that. But again, it really for me is. It's just a tool, so it's, I think at the end of the day, you can still, if you have that sensibility, you can create anything out of anything, so, and I think that's what's quite fun as well. Because if I, let's say, I'm not able to shoot an analog and I only, let's say, have digital, what it makes me do, it allows me to actually think and see in a different way of like, okay, how am I going to attain that? And I think that's what's quite exciting.
But that's really interesting, because it means you're also open to the medium you work with,
Of course, yeah.
I mean, there will be DJs who would just play with vinyl, for example. So it's not like that for you.
No, not at all. And I think that's what's exciting, because when someone asks me what camera do you use, I mean, for me, it's not about that. It's just about just exploring and trying out things, and because you can just still create something out of nothing in a sense.
But could it also be a phone camera?
It can, yeah. I mean, I'm a bit awkward with shooting on the iPhone with certain things, but I like to have more of a proper gadget or tool, I guess.
So when we look at your visual language, are there any motives or symbols that kind of have, always come back, always play a role?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I've always been obsessed with the shape of the pyramid and like that energy and working within that. So I think through a lot of my different work, through different mediums, that kind of comes up, but also the sphere. Like there's a lot of different elements, I think, that I either consciously or subconsciously work with, yeah.
And when you create, what's the first thing you do when you start? Like, do you scribble? Do you have a notebook? Do you make...
It's a good question.
Yeah.
I have many notebooks, colorful ones, and I love to sketch in pencil and write down ideas and mock up things or little drawings. And then, so I like to have an overview of roughly what I want to maybe create. And then again, it's just a guidance. And then in the moment, anything can happen.
But does that differ from creating an image or making an object?
Yes, I guess, because with the object or with that sketch, that's something that's going to be more prominent, and you really wanted to maybe have that specific shape and form, and again, but the way that I work with the stone is in a very natural way. So, but yeah, compared to an image, there I really just let things happen and go with it, and I think that's the beauty also when you're able to just do that.
I always love to learn how creatives work because, sometimes you expect an artist to be complete creative chaos, unhappy, happy, strong emotions. What kind of artist are you like? How do you feel during the process of creation? Of a creation. Of creation in general.
I would say just like very easy, and I don't know, like I don't see things as a problem, and if it's not meant to be, it's not gonna be. So I don't know. I would say, if I may say, have that sensibility of just just making things work and having fun with it. I think that's the most important thing, is to have fun as well.
And are you relieved once the work is done?
I mean, it depends on what job we're talking about, but no, I mean, yes and no. I don't know.
Yeah. Now I want to know more.
No.
So I was asking you that earlier, but I think it's really interesting because, especially growing from a young talent, and at some point you're not a young talent anymore, you're an established artist, but walking past a store and seeing your pictures printed so big, does that still make you like really happy, really proud? Or do you ever reach a point where you're just like, oh, okay?
No, I think of course. I mean, I'm always proud. I'm always excited. And I think it's nice. It's nice to have also that affirmation. And I mean, we work so hard and we do so many things. So it's always exciting. Yeah.
Do you have any rituals? That, rituals could also mean you get up at 6, work
Don't
2
get
hours.
up at 6.
When do you get up?
It depends.
But you know what I mean. Some people say, okay, you have to work from 5 to 8.
No.
To get your best creative output.
I think what I've learned over the years is to like allow myself to also be and go through the moments. I mean, we all travel so much, and there's a lot of things that also we put our bodies through in that. So I think just allowing myself to also have some moments to be, and then that also allows for me to be able to kind of create more naturally and freely. So yeah.
Can you work when you travel?
Yeah, I can. Yeah.
So that's also focus hours.
It's a really good focus hour, yeah. Being on the plane and being able to work there, depending. But
have you always been confident about your work?
I would say, yeah. I think what I've always trusted in myself, and I think that's something that's quite also important, and trusting in the process, like ultimately. And I think that's been something, we've all. It's been a journey, let's say. I mean, it didn't always, wasn't always so seamless and things like that. But that's a part of learning. So I've been through it and that. But I think that's what's always kind of kept me quite grounded, is just like believing in what I want to do and put out there, and then that coming back also energetically in ways.
So how do you know when you made a good product? I'm saying product because I would like to know the answer for both the photograph and an object, speaking about both of it. But how do you know it's finished?
How do I know it's finished?
Yeah.
I don't know. I create very quickly and easily, and I don't sit and rotate on things. I just move on, and I just, when it's like a gut feeling. So I would, yeah.
And did you have to learn to trust your gut?
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Because I just find confidence. So confidence is inspiring, but it's also, I think, in an age where you possibly compete with, social media, you look around all the time. I think it's really important to learn how to be confident, and also really inspiring to, to look at people who have managed that. Yeah. I'd love to talk to you about the body, because when you create a furniture piece, of course, like a furniture piece has a body, but looking at the pictures, you also work with your own body when you're photographing yourself. So what role does it play in your artistic practice?
For me, it's just like a tool. It's being able to work with shape and form. And I mean, we've all been gifted these beautiful bodies, and being able to kind of see it from a different perspective, and actually also from a sense of non-judgment, I think, which is also important. So for me, in a way, working with it in a sculptural sense and abstract sense, and just tuning into it and seeing what comes up is fun, and it's exciting, and I feel like I learn new things every day, in a sense.
Okay, the body as a tool.
Yeah.
Everyone in fashion, I think, has a connection to a brand or a memory. And I remember when you first told me about your collaboration with Sportmax, I was in Notting Hill, I was in a vintage shop, and I was just like looking at this, picked out this beautiful dress, and I was like, and with Sportmax, I was thinking like, yeah, we should do this talk together. It really took it as a sign. And I love these little anecdotes you have with a brand or a label. I'd love to hear what was your connection with Sportmax before you collaborated.
I think the connection there was probably through my parents and like also growing up, I mean, in South Africa, but my dad being Italian and bringing back these elements to Cape Town, yeah.
So what are your, no, it's a very private question to ask you what your parents are like, but what did your parents teach you about fashion, for example?
I don't know, not too much.
Yeah.
Not too much in a sense, but I think being in Cape Town in South Africa, like, I mean, we didn't have access to like everything that was obviously in Europe at the time. And so luckily I was able to come overseas and tune into fashion and see all of the magazines and that. And I think those images really stuck with me and kind of opened up a first initiative that I wanted to be a photographer as well.
So when you collaborate with a brand, how do you transfer, or how do you translate, maybe is the better word, your partner's message into your own language?
I think it's specific project to project, obviously, so it really depends. So I think here, you know, with the S and the Iconic S, it was nice to kind of use that as more of a sculptural base and let that kind of, I don't know, flow through the work and the images and that have that be like a starting point, and I think a connection.
Okay, but what, like a starting point, and then you took the symbol and then you start from there?
Yeah, I mean, I have fun and I kind of create really in the moment, and it's nothing is rigid, nothing is like set out, and you kind of just play and try create something, also something new.
So there's a constant flow in art. So, you know, artists need work, they need work to survive, but they also need a lot of freedom. You know, you just said it, you work very freely. When you work with a brand, do you ever feel limited?
I mean, of course, I've felt limited and there's been parameters and stuff, but I think what's been exciting about how I work is also trying to allow or let them to see a different way of working or perspective and push them a bit as well, because, you know, I think that's what's exciting, is also just trying to get people to be more in a state of allowance and,
Did you ever have to stop a partnership?
No.
Because I believe that happens every now and then, you know, when it just collides. But how did you, because I want to come back to like the visual identity, was there a point where you were like, oh, I think I found my signature?
Yeah, I think with color, and I think when I started like printing in the darkroom and finding my own way, that became a bit of a signature as well. And I think in the beginning, a lot of people, a lot of brands didn't really connect with that at all. So it was really interesting how they were, I don't know, if maybe a bit afraid of that use of color, and then how it kind of all came back afterwards. And, you know, me just again trusting in the process and just doing my thing.
Because you also evolved in a time where, you know, the general colors were very beige, very reduced, you know, you had like a very minimalistic approach. And I believe you coming in, being bold and being colorful must have been new to a few brands.
I think so, yeah.
Do you have any boundaries that you set?
No, never.
No rules, no boundaries?
No. Then no, it's not how I work, yeah.
Okay, let's speak about the images that you took for Sportmax. What was your vision behind it?
So my vision was to kind of, I mean, I guess the main thing that we wanted to incorporate was my use of color and as well into the images. I decided that I wanted to go photograph the work in a stone kind of yard, and like where I kind of gather a lot of my stones from as well in South Africa. So we went there, had a few ideas in mind, but just really went with it from, from sunrise to sunset, and I had fun.
So when you say we, that means you also work with a team for that?
A very tiny team, yes.
Very tiny. How tiny?
Well, on that shoot, one other person on set, yeah.
Yeah. So and what really convinced you to embrace the collaboration?
I think it was a no-brainer. It was just, it made sense. It was, there was synergy. It was, it just worked.
Was there a brief?
There was a rough brief, a rough guideline.
Is that good? Because I'd love to know if is a carte blanche the dream, or is that even harder?
What, carte blanche?
Yeah.
Carte blanche is the best. That's just really trusting in the process, and that's how I really love to work. So I think that's always. On my part, what you want, because you have the freedom, you really can do what you want, and you believe in yourself in that sense, and just create something really powerful without having restrictions and having to regard so many elements. And I think that's when artists also are able to really put their vision behind it and their energy, and because there's no restrictions and you're really in your power and your energy of creation, and that's ultimately, when the best or strongest work, I think, comes.
I love that, because I think there's also a danger of getting lost in.
Yeah, and I think maybe
freedom.
if you, and I mean, it depends person to person, and also maybe if you don't have that sense of self, you can perhaps get lost and confused or whatever. But I think,
Tell us a little bit more about the location, because we're in Paris today. We're having crazy weather. Yesterday, thunderstorm. Today is really hot. Again, take us on a small journey to South Africa and tell us a little bit about where you took the pictures.
Yeah, so I'm obviously from Cape Town. So we drove to some of my producer locations, which are an hour outside of the city. That's where I kind of work on all my tables and designs and everything. So we did more on the production side of the location, and then we went further up, 3-hour drive into the into inland to kind of go to one of the old stone locations that has all the white Namibian marble and serpentine and all kinds of big blocks of stone.
And did you style yourself?
With my team.
Okay, but you chose the looks before, and then you went there and you did,
Yeah.
How is getting dressed for you? Is it something you enjoy? Do you enjoy fashion?
Yeah, I like it. It's fun, and obviously the more colorful the better, and it's something that's just very intuitive. Yeah.
So when you first encountered the Iconic S, which is obviously the highlight of your campaign, what did the symbolism represent to you? Did it spark any particular imagery, emotion, concept?
I think the S was a beautiful portal into synergy and connection, and also connecting us, from artist to the brand, and just having that sculptural element that really, I think, bound this whole project as well, and that just for me allows movement and motion and synergy.
Tell me what you mean with portal.
Just how I create. It's tapping into that energy and just allowing that to go and just going with it.
But like a little portal into a different world.
Yeah.
How did the idea of the S as a link shape what you created?
Sorry?
Shape what you created. Do we find it in every picture? Yes, right? We have close-ups, and then we have a few.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's also the styling element is, it's always visible in the look, so it's always there.
Yeah, but then you did, a few centerpieces.
Yeah.
But also black and white shoots, which was new, right?
Black and white?
Yeah, the black and white photographs.
I mean, not new, but again, I think what was interesting is working more with the yin and yang, the light and dark, and working with shape. And I think that's how I like to work in black and white, is because you have that balance and contrast for dark and lighter, and you can really play with that quite nicely.
Yeah. So the S belongs to a wide selection. So it's on bags, jewelry, ready to wear. Is there one that really inspired you the most?
I mean, I love the earrings.
Mhm.
Yeah. I think they're really fun, and I love wearing them.
Yeah, because they're both very sculptural.
Mm.
Were there any parts of the process that you deliberately left open or unpredictable?
I mean, I think the whole project.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's also coming a little bit back to, the question if you want every image to tell a story,
Yeah.
or if maybe it's also okay to not tell
Whatever story you want to tap into, you know.
one. Yeah. I think if you have a question for Lea, now is a good time to think a little bit about it, because I know it's always really hard to ask the first one.
I had many questions, but you pretty much touched all of them. But one question about inspiration. When you said your process is very instinctive.
Yeah.
And also you said you approached photography in high school through a teacher. But was there any either fine art photographer or commercial photographer that inspired you, or you were too excited to be making images, creating images?
It's a good question. I guess, to be honest, like I've never really had a reference point, and I think that's what's been quite interesting, because I didn't study. I didn't like. Of course, I was able to, look at magazines, and I remember seeing Steven Meisel and all of these photographers, or Roversi, which was like amazing. But for me, it was always never using those references to create my work, because I think I have my own language that I wanted to create or want to create, and I think that's important for people either wanting to start in photography and that, because there's so much out there and it's so saturated, and a lot of, I think, there's a lot of copies of things, but that's in anything, right? But so no, I've always just done my own thing and not looked left or right, and I think that's what's quite fun.
South African land. The amazing South African land is not just a backdrop, but it's like a part of the image. Has it always been like this in your creative process, or you rediscovered it going back to South Africa?
I think it's been more part of it now, because I actually work in stone. So I'm working with that earth energy. I'm working with that information that's been tumbled through time and space. So I think now it's more something that I love to also bring in, and also more nature and that connection. But I guess I've always had it, maybe, but now I've tapped into it more.
Cool.
I want to, because I love that reference point, and now I want to ask you, what is it like for you now that you have become a reference point?
Have I become a reference point?
Most likely, yes.
How? You tell me.
No, but people looking up to you, wanting to hear everything from how do you create a visual language, up to which camera do you use? Does that ever feel new, unexpected, really nice?
Yeah, I guess, all of those elements. But again, I think, for me, it's not so much about those points as well. So, but yeah.
So you can make like a little, mental barrier there.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Now I overtook again. Do we have a second? Oh, yeah. 2 questions over there. Yeah.
Hi.
I really love the furniture. It's unusual. And
Thank you.
I love the energy of stone, and I think you seem to have this resonance with different stones and the landscape and the energetic sense. And you spoke about pyramid, and you love the shape. And so I think this all sounds quite spiritual. So I wondered if you considered your work to be spiritual, or whether you had a spiritual practice, and if so, does it influence your work?
I mean, I guess yes, in a sense, but it's just my own. So it's not something that I kind of label as that per se. It's just something that I've always been connected to and felt and have tapped into in a lot of different ways and shapes and forms. And I think ultimately, my whole ethos and my whole practice taps into something in of an energy and whatever you want to call it at the end of the day. But yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. And then I think we had one question there.
Hello, your work. I was wondering, is there like periods you're just not happy with your work, like your work is not clicking, something like an artistic block? What's your process of getting out of that? Like, what do you like to do?
To be honest, I've never had it, so I'm actually unable to answer that question. No, luckily no, I don't see a block. I wouldn't label it as a block. So for me, I think if anything comes up that you're unclear of, I see it more of like a beautiful challenge. So like, I don't know, go deeper or seek something else or see what's not aligning and, and then tap into something else. So I don't like to see the negative in that sense and just really, again, trust oneself. And if I need a moment time out, I'll take it. And then hopefully, you see the light.
But there was a really interesting word in your question, and that was clicking.
Clicking, yeah.
And I instantly thought of social media, of course. And now you work in a colorway that the usual algorithm doesn't always support. Photography is always hard on Instagram, especially fashion photography can be hard, bold use of color. Was that ever challenging?
No, but I think working with the female form has been something that's been challenging on these parameters and on these platforms, which has been really frustrating in ways because
pictures get deleted.
Yeah, and that kind of, so unfortunately, there's a whole nother topic.
Yeah, but did you have a mantra or something like that, or an emotion behind behind this collaboration?
No, not that I'm aware of.
And now you and you said, that people, of course, can feel something when they see your pictures. Is there something specific where you an emotion where you hope they will feel that?
No, ultimately, again, it's just allowing you to be and see and feel and think and tune into it however you want to. And I think that's the beauty of how I like to kind of create. And so I think I would leave it, with that.
Do we have one more question? Okay, I have one more question. Sorry, I have a few more, but we have to stop at one point. Sorry, I was mumbling the last sentence. Is there anything you would ask your audience like to take away from today?
I'm not sure. I don't know.
It could be, have them inspired, take a closer look at the pictures.
Well, I think the main thing, what I've been kind of, I guess, also saying in a sense of like just trusting oneself and allowing oneself to be and to see and in different ways and pushing oneself out of one's comfort zone. And I think there's a lot of beauty that can happen when you just are in that state of allowance. And I think allowance is an important word there. And you kind of just be and trust. And I think that's when things flow and things connect, and in all the realms, in all the ways.
Beauty and allowance. That's a very, very beautiful last sentence. Thank you so much, Lea, for sharing your world.
Thank you so much.
Your vision for Sportmax Iconic S with us. It was such a pleasure to speak with you.
Thank you.
Learn from you. And thank you so much for all of you for being here with us today. Thank you.